Hello everybody and welcome to the video today where we're going to be tanking a shed with KA Tanking Slurry. This is the shed in question. As you can see, it's an absolute tip, and it's also suffering quite a bit with damp, hence the reason that we're using the tanking slurry. So you can see the damp up there in the corner. You can also see the kind of green stains that have formed over the years from the damp and the mold, I guess, that's collected in here. And the place is just generally untidy. There's cobwebs everywhere, spiders, and just dust and dirt. It just really needs a good clean out. So there you go. We've removed all the stuff from the shed, and now we actually need to prepare all the surfaces for the tanking slurry. Now, if you have a relatively new garage or a shed with, for example, breeze block walls, clean pointing, no paint on it, then this type of work is not going to be necessary. You're probably going to be able to just go straight onto the surface with the tanking slurry itself. However, the wall here, you can see the dust that's coming off there when I'm running the wire brush along it. It's covered in paint. It's very dusty, and basically if you apply the slurry over the top of that, it's just not going to hold onto the surface. So what I'm having to do is basically just really clean the bricks off, remove any loose paint, any dust, and then we'll be ready to actually apply the tanking slurry. So this was quite a big job actually. It took about, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours. It was quite tedious, quite boring, but it's one of those things that needs to be done. So I finished it off here with a wire brush attachment on the drill. That just took the last bits off and really got into all those nooks and crannies to get rid of any crumbling sort of mortar that was in between the bricks and any flaky paint that I'd missed. So this did quite a good job, but as you can see, it's a messy job, so you definitely need your goggles on, you definitely need your mask on when you're doing this type of work. But yeah, it did a reasonably good job. I probably could have done a little bit better with it if I'd have maybe used some brick cleaner, but there was actually a shed on the other side of this shed of identical size, and I did exactly the same thing. I cleaned it, tanked it, and I ended up using brick cleaning, like an acid, on the bricks, and I applied it 2 or 3 times, and the effect that it had, whilst it did improve them, it wasn't really good enough to warrant doing it again. I didn't think so anyway. So after that was done, I washed the walls down, and I had to fill basically all the holes and all the gaps. For example, here the pointing was completely gone. It had just crumbled away, and it needed redoing. This is one of the reasons that the moisture was coming in, I'm sure. And obviously the tanking slurry is quite expensive, so you don't really want to be trying to fill gaps like this with the slurry itself. So it's much cheaper and easier, in fact, to do it with just a standard sand and cement mix. So the mix that I'm using here is 5 parts sand, 1 part cement, and the little piece of wood there, the little hawk sort of thing that I'm holding the mortar on, I just made that out of a small piece of MDF and a bit of 2B1 that I had lying about. Now you could go buy one of these, but you're probably going to spend 20, 30 pounds or dollars depending on where you are. So I mean, if you have the wood lying around, just a couple of cuts and a couple of screws. So quite simple. So yeah, I'm not the best pointer, so we're just going to speed through this because you don't need any tips from me on how to point. It's certainly not my area of expertise, but this is just really to fill the gaps and to get covered up with the tanking slurry, so it doesn't have to be super neat. And I think it's I didn't do a bad job. Got it all filled in. This was the worst wall, and then there were just like little tiny bits missing around the entire shed. But this bit was certainly the most extensive bit, and I got a little bit of help. My son came in and did a little bit of pointing for me. As you can see, he's a natural, doing a better job than me, I think, there. But yeah, we got it done. It didn't take that long, maybe about an hour and a half. And this is the product that we're using, KA Tanking Slurry. I've used it a few times before. As I mentioned, I used it in our other shed on the other side of this, and it did a fantastic job. I actually converted that into an office, and this was just over 2 years ago now, and there's been absolutely no sign of damp coming through. And it was quite a damp, very, very similar condition to this shed. So it is really a great product. I definitely recommend it to anybody who has this kind of work to do. So mixing the slurry is pretty simple. As you can see here, I've just filled a bucket around a quarter of the way up, and then I'm slowly adding the tanking slurry powder into the bucket and mixing as I go. And this is definitely the way to do it. You just want to add a little bit at a time. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to get to kind of a creamy consistency is probably the best way I could describe it. It doesn't want to be too thick, but it doesn't want to be too wet. So as you can see, I'm just adding a little bit more, and then I give it another mix. And once all the powder has disappeared, then I'll add a little bit more in. You can actually see now that it's starting to thicken up. It's starting to get that kind of creamy consistency. Yeah, so that's looking something like where I want to be, I think, with it now. I'm sure that's just about done. And actually, the way to check it is, as I'm doing now, stick a brush in it. If your brush stands up, that's about done. And as you can see, it's got that kind of silky, creamy consistency to it. And then putting it on the walls is very simple. I mean, you can just apply it as you would with any type of paint. It's quite easy to work with. As long as you don't put too little water in. If it is too stiff, it can be a little bit harder to spread. And obviously, as soon as you've added the water, the chemical process does start. So as you're working your way through the bucket, you can actually feel the slurry stiffening up. So yeah, I would rather have it a little wetter than a little drier, if it was me doing it. Also, the second coat, because you need to put 2 coats on. This first coat's going on vertically. The second coat will go on horizontally, so you fill all the gaps and get into all the nooks and crannies. And for me personally, I preferred to have the second coat a little bit wetter. Same for the floor as well. I did the floor and I had that a little bit wetter, and I actually rolled that with a paint roller. So the second coat I found could be just that little bit wetter, and it worked out much easier to get on. As you can see, this is the finished product, and it is completely covered. I mean, this room now is 100% damp proofed. So there's going to be absolutely no more moisture getting in here. It's looking much tidier, much cleaner. And, this is just the start of this project. There is going to be another video coming up shortly where I'm actually going to be adding some shelves into this area. And we're going to be taking all that mess that was on the floor before and putting it on the shelves. So this is a 2-parter. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and keep an eye out for the second one. It'll be coming out within the next few days.